Persona 3 Reload is extremely close to release now, and just thinking about that is insane. I know a lot of people that are excited for this game, be it old fans excited to return or new fans looking to experience this gem for the first time. Persona 3 is just something special, and it's coming back in a big way like this is extremely noteworthy. So I just wanted to talk about this game one more time before release, to talk about why I am so excited, why you should be excited, and just to talk about why this release is so important. And if you like content like this, be sure to subscribe, as I talk a lot about JRPGs and just games in general. All the support really does help me out, and I really appreciate it. But let's get into it now and talk about Persona 3 Reload. If you know my channel, which you probably don't, let's be honest, you might know that my first video ever was something similar to this. It was about Persona 3 and about why I always wanted a remake, or about why a lot of people in general always wanted a remake, because at the time, the remake wasn't even announced yet. But since that video did not age very well quality-wise, I'm just gonna recap some of those points real quick over here, just for the people who are still wondering why this remake is so anticipated in the first place. Persona is of course a very beloved JRPG franchise. It mixes together dungeon gameplay and turn-based combat with slice-of-life elements like a calendar system, social links, school activities, you name it. And in my opinion, this is a very clever and fun way to structure a game. Do you want to hang out with your favorite characters, grow closer to them and get to know them better? Or do you want to go into the dungeon, grind a bit, get stronger and just have fun with the turn-based combat? No matter what you do, you're always making progress towards something, and everything influences each other. Plus, on top of all of that, the games also tell amazing stories about really great characters. But this structure only got introduced with Persona 3. Most of the elements that make modern-day Persona comes from Persona 3, and every single Persona game after this really builds on this foundation, not only fleshing out some aspects, but also introducing new elements to really fine-tune this Persona formula. But because Persona 3 was of course the first time that Atlus ever tried their hands at a formula like this, the game didn't age that well. Both the dungeon and the slice-of-life activities are pretty basic and restrictive, especially compared to the most recent games. Plus, it's also a game originally from 2006, so in general some mechanics are pretty dated. But even with all of these restrictions or criticisms, Persona 3 is for many still the best Persona game. Its character, story, world, OST, and just the themes of everything are, in my opinion, the best that Persona has to offer, even until today. Hell, even outside of Persona, it's among the best that I've ever played. It's a game about life and death, and really just the meaning of life. And this theme is present in everything. Every single arc, every single character, or even down to how the game is structured with the calendar system. And the way that the theme is integrated into every single aspect is masterfully done, in my opinion. Every character is also not only likable and fun, but they also feel like real people with real struggles and real relationships as the game is exploring this. Their story is also very interconnected with the main story of the game. Their development doesn't just run parallel to it in the side quests or in the side episodes, but their story is the main story, or at least it's part of it. They're a major driving force of everything that's happening throughout the whole plot. And the game also isn't afraid of letting the story or the characters influence the gameplay, with characters becoming unavailable or just changing the way that they act for certain arcs, which makes everything feel impactful. So now imagine all of that being updated to today's standards for gaming. And Reload is not only trying to reach the bar of quality that Persona 5 Royal set, for example, but it's trying to surpass it. And judging by the trailers and just all of the information that we have, Reload looks like it has everything that the original Persona 3 had, while not only improving on what was there, but also adding new stuff. And because of that, it really has the potential to surpass the most critically acclaimed Persona game. But while I'm talking about the content and the things that Reload is adding, there is a little bit of controversy surrounding that on the internet, and while I personally think that it's a little bit dumb, I couldn't not mention it for a video like this. The controversy is basically that Persona 3 Reload is a remake of the original Persona 3. Because you know, Persona 3 has a few versions, the original, Portable and FES, all with different content. Most noticeably, FES added a social link for Aegis and the Answer, which is an epilogue story, and Portable, while it's leaving out the Answer, did take most other additions from FES and also added a female protagonist. The female protagonist just provides an alternative way to play the game, with a different protagonist who in turn also has some different social links. Each version does have their ups and downs though. They all have some great new features, but something was always missing in return. Portable, being a PSP game, had to be downgraded in some ways, turning the game into a visual novel outside of the dungeon. But in turn, the dungeon experience is upgraded. There was just more to do and you also had full control over your party members in combat. And FES then of course has 3D environments to explore, and it has actual animated cutscenes, but you can't control your party members or play as the female protagonist. In my opinion, because of this, there was never a best version of Persona 3. It was more a case of what do you prefer, what do you value more? And now we have Persona 3 Reload, which, as I mentioned before, is a remake of the original Persona 3. So it won't have any of the new additions like the Answer or the female protagonist, and a lot of people kind of just went insane over this, saying that the remake is completely useless now just because FemC isn't there, or that there's no point in even playing Reload because the Answer isn't there to play afterwards. People originally just wanted a definitive version. That's why we wanted a remake, to combine all the content from FES and Portable to have one definitive version to play. And while I can understand being disappointed for that reason, don't get me wrong, it would be cool if all of the content was here. I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest. Especially because it's not just a one-to-one remake of the original Persona 3. There will be FES content, there will be Portable content. It's literally just the Answer and the female route that's missing. Both of which, let's be honest, is in no way vital to the Persona 3 experience. While you're choosing your playable character in Portable, the game literally tells you that the female protagonist is something for experienced players, so they can re-experience Persona 3 in a different light. While you can play as her for a replay or for your first route, and while her route is also just really good, the story of Persona 3 was not created with her in mind. And the Answer epilogue is in a similar situation, especially because it's an epilogue. It's a good epilogue in my opinion, but it's still an epilogue. The main story of Persona 3 is extremely satisfying without it, and it doesn't need the Answer to be good. Plus, as a quick side note, when I originally played Persona 3 in the Answer, everyone online was shitting on it. It was even seen as a hot take to like the Answer, but now that Reload won't be including it, all of a sudden people act like it's the best piece of media ever created, and because Atlas isn't including it, the game shouldn't be made or something like that. Again, don't get me wrong, I really like the Answer and I do really enjoy the female protagonist as well, but they're not a core part of Persona 3, so I don't mind that they're not included here. The devs made the decision to focus on remaking Persona 3, the core experience of Persona 3, to expand on it, to improve on it, adding content from the other versions, but also not forcing in every single piece of content from those versions. And I respect that decision, especially because it is just those things. It would be a completely different story if we were leaving out other elements like the Elizabeth dates or the Aegis social link, or other stuff like that, but they're not doing that. Maybe they'll even add the Answer or female protagonist in the DLC. Who knows, it would be cool to have them again, but I don't think they're necessary, and the fact that they're not here does not make this remake any less exciting for me. Because, as I said, this isn't just a one-to-one remake of vanilla, it's so much more. But what's also important, especially story-wise, is that it's gonna be a faithful recreation of the original story. In interviews, they keep saying that they really want new players to come to Persona 3 Reload and experience the original story that we all fell in love with. But that doesn't mean that they won't be expanding on it either. They're not expanding on it in the way of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which seems to be doing something completely different, but they're expanding on it in other ways to still stay faithful. And while, yeah, they can kinda say what they want in interviews, we have a lot of gameplay footage and a lot of trailers to back this all up. And the way that they are expanding the game then is just by adding in new additions. Stuff like the side stories that focus on specific characters. That way we can have new story content and we can flesh out certain characters, but it won't completely change up the main story, which keeps it a faithful recreation. Especially because if all of this content was made to be part of the main narrative, if all of these side stories were implemented inside of the main story, it could lead to some issues like the pacing or the focus getting messed up. And I feel like this is also their way to include some of the FES and portable content without it interfering with the base game, without them having to remove social links that were part of the original. Because in both the original FES and for the male route of portable, the male party members from SEAS did not have social links. I'm not sure why, but the story of every single party member is fully integrated into the main plot, and I guess a big draw of the social links was the romance aspect, so because of that I'm guessing that Atlas didn't see the need to hang out with male party members outside of the story, but in the female route for portable they did give them social links. Some of them are kind of hit and miss, but it is still nice to just hang out with these characters, to see another side of them, and to just get to know them in a different way, just like you could do with the female party members, even if you didn't want to romance them. It was especially nice for some specific characters like Shinjiro, for example. I really liked his social link. But now, in Reload, while we won't have a literal social link, we are getting more screen time with him. We're getting these side stories for him and every other male SEAS members. Even characters that aren't part of SEAS, like Ryoji or Strega, are confirmed to get a bigger focus in this game, either through new events or through these side stories. Which is just awesome, because some of these characters, especially Strega, could definitely use some more screen time. And by giving them that screen time without just adding more social links, they're also a lot more free in the way that they want to structure them. They don't need 10 ranks now. Maybe some characters will only have 4 or 5 episodes, because that's all they need, while others might get even more than 10. And they can also make them available during the parts of the game that it makes sense. They're also not forced to go into a romantic direction this way. With the male links from Portable, they kinda felt like a fanfiction at times, just because they really wanted to give them a romance, which made some of them a bit awkward, while here they can't just be anything. Hell, maybe the main character doesn't have to be there for some of these side stories, as we've already seen new scenes from just the Strega members hanging out alone. Those might just be new events though, or something else entirely, but no matter what they are, I'll take it. It's more screen time for characters that deserve it, and it's a sign that this isn't just a one-to-one remake, they're actually adding things where necessary. This remake really looks like the devs are taking this opportunity not only to update the gameplay and the game systems, which is the main thing that we all wanted, but they're also taking this opportunity to perfect this story and these characters, which is extremely exciting. And while we're on the topic of the story, we also have a completely new voice cast for Reload. And now, thanks to the new trailers and everything, we have heard quite a bit from them, and personally, I really love how everyone sounds. Of course, the old voices will always be iconic, but from what I've heard, I'm really excited to experience this story with the new English cast. Especially because they're not trying to replicate the old voices. Every voice actor is doing their own thing, they're putting their own spin on the characters and they're leaving their mark on this franchise. But at the same time, they're still being true to the characters that they're portraying. They've also been releasing these behind the scenes trailers, and I really love how the whole cast seems super excited to be working on this game. They know how important Persona 3 is for us, the players, and it looks like it's just as important to them. It's just so nice to see that everyone on this project is just as passionate as the fans are, if not more. But moving on from the story, while it definitely looks to be expanded and improved, The biggest changes definitely come from the gameplay. Because as I was saying in the intro, while the story and the themes and the characters of Persona 3 were already incredible, it's the gameplay that didn't age well. And just as a game to play, it feels a lot nicer in Reload. Everything just feels really smooth, running around in Tartarus, finding treasures, ambushing shadows, and the combat itself. While most of what I've been talking about before is all stuff from trailers or interviews, this stuff is actually something that I know firsthand, as I got to play a bit of the game at Gamescom 2023, and it was really just exactly what you'd expect from it. It felt like I was playing a modern Persona game. It felt like I was playing something like Persona 5 Royal, but newer, the next step. But it was still Persona 3, and it felt like Persona 3. Everything looked gorgeous, and it flowed extremely well. And outside of just being a new game, a lot of that is thanks to the new Tartarus, which is of course the main and only dungeon of Persona 3, so you will be spending a lot of time there. But in the original, Tartarus is actually one of the things that got criticized the most, and a lot of people didn't play Persona 3 because of Tartarus. One part of that is just because it's absolutely massive, but also because it used to be very, very repetitive. Every floor played exactly the same and at the exact same layout, only changing visually, and there just wasn't really anything going on besides for fighting enemies. Yeah, you could pick up some treasures, but you couldn't even sprint. There wasn't really any dialogue between the characters, there weren't really any special shadows or special events, there wasn't really anything that you could do besides for progressing the game. But in Reload, Tartarus doesn't only look fantastic, but every floor also looks and is structured completely differently. I mean, not every floor, but like the floors are grouped together into different blocks and every block is different from the one before, but you get what I mean. I like that they're still randomly generated, just like the original ones, but there's just so much more going on here, both visually and from the way it's structured. Some of these are winding hallways, others are grand halls. It looks really, really interesting, and I'm really excited to explore all of these blocks for myself. Also because they actually added new gameplay elements to it now. There are more things to do, so you're not just progressing the dungeon. Some of these additions originated from Portable or FES, but others are also just completely new to Persona 3. Like, there are different types of treasure chests, so you have more reason to explore. Some of these chests will also be locked, and you need a special resource to unlock them. And from the most recent previews, we've seen that these resources can be gathered both inside and outside of Tartarus. Besides that, we now also have breakable objects, and they added a sprint, and they also added conversations between your party members, so you're not just alone and miserable and lonely while exploring this dungeon. Your party members are there, and they're actually talking to you now. And besides that, they're also reworking stuff and removing stuff like the tired mechanic. Just all of these things in general, they might sound like small things, but I do think that they're gonna do a lot to make Tartarus more fun. Especially because Tartarus' biggest problem was just how repetitive it was. So small additions like this will probably go a long way. Plus, the combat itself also just got a major upgrade, which also just adds to the whole dungeon experience. They basically reworked the entire combat system, so it's up to standard with other turn-based games. They also added some new features like the shift, which is basically the baton pass from Persona 5. So you can switch to another character as soon as you hit an enemy's weakness. And they added a special Tertia attack, which is a sort of an ultimate attack because you have this bar that's charging up during battle, and then every single character has this unique attack with special passive effects as well. And this special attack is also one of the new mechanics that helps connect the life sim gameplay to the dungeon gameplay. Because, as I was saying in the beginning, in Persona, a lot of what you do outside of the dungeon can also influence the dungeon gameplay itself. And while the original Persona 3 didn't have that much of it, Reload is adding a lot of those things, because they just expanded the life sim in general by adding a lot more activities. One of these being gardening on the roof of the dorm, which you can now do with your party members to level their Tertia attack. Outside of this, they also added a lot of other activities. Some of these come from FES, like the Elizabeth dates or the Koromaru walk, talks, and they're not just adding these things, but they're also expanding on it. We've already seen new scenes with Koromaru and with Elizabeth. Either they expanded the dates or they expanded the requests, but they expanded on it, and that's really cool. You can also have a part-time job now, like you can have in Portable, and they also added a lot of new stuff, like cooking food with party members. You can also go out at night now. Before, you could go out at night, but you could literally only go to the mall or the Tartarus. But now the entire island is accessible at any time. They made social links more accessible as well, so you don't have to follow a day-by-day guide anymore if you want to 100% the game in one run. And there are a lot of other small activities that you can do with your party members as well, like reading books together or watching a movie together. There is so much here, from small things to big things, that just make me so excited to dive back into this game. I'm excited to see the familiar things, but I'm also just as excited to see all the new additions. There are also some other things that I would personally love to see, but that haven't been confirmed, even though I'm pretty sure that they're gonna be here, so I kinda wanna include this. This might age badly, but I'm pretty sure that they'll make it in. Things like XP share between party members. That's just something that I really liked in Persona 5 and in a lot of modern RPGs, because you could switch out party members mid-battle and they all level up together. So that way, every single character can feel useful in battle. While in old JRPGs, if you don't want to grind an ungodly amount, you always had to choose like your 3 main party members, and those would be the characters that you level, and the other ones would kinda just stay at the default level. I always just prefer it if every character levels up, so everyone can feel useful, so I can switch up my party every now and then. And while they haven't confirmed it, I really hope it's here, and I feel like it will be because Persona 5 had it, Persona 5 Royal has it, but we'll see. Something else would be the romance, because as I mentioned before, I think the male main character was always forced to romance every single girl once you reached a certain rank, and I do not want that to return, but I'm also like 100% sure that it won't, because it wasn't in the female route, it wasn't in 4, it wasn't in 5, so I would be extremely confused if it was in this game. Reload is faithful, yeah, but it's still changing things, and I saw a lot of people worry about this online, but I'm like 99.9% sure that this is a feature that's just gonna be here. They're not gonna force you to romance everyone. And I think that's it. Oh yeah, no, I can't believe that I didn't talk about this yet, but there's also a completely new OST. Some tracks are remakes of old songs, other tracks are just simple remixes, but other tracks are also just completely new. In my opinion, the new songs are all fucking incredible. The night theme or the new battle theme sound so good. I really love the new vocalist, but the remixes are a bit strange. They're not bad, but I listened to the old OST so much that the new songs just kinda sounded a bit weird at first, because it's a different vocalist, some songs have different lyrics, they're all remixes, so my brain is just kinda like, wait, this isn't the Changing Seasons I know. But then when I listen to it more, I'm like, yeah, I don't care, this song is really fucking good anyway, even if it's not the original. It's gonna be interesting to hear more of the new songs though, especially Memories of You, but so far every song has been either good, great, or incredible, so I'm not too worried. Plus, even if they got a new vocalist, they still kept Lotus Shoes, so how bad can it really be? But yeah, in general, this remake is just really shaping up to be everything that I ever wanted from it and more. I guess it's a bit wrong to say that it's exactly what I originally wanted, since I was also one of the people that would have liked to have the answer and the female protagonist and stuff, but what we're getting now is honestly better than I could have ever imagined. They're not just taking what was there, mashing it together and selling it for full price, but they're also not just re-releasing Persona 3 either. They remade it. They turned it into a full-fledged next entry of the Persona series, and that's literally what I always used to dream of. Especially now that the previews are starting to release and I'm seeing quotes like a divine remake going around. It's so fucking exciting, man. The game also just looks fucking gorgeous and I can't wait. But that's everything though, I'm gonna leave the video here. Be sure to let me know what you are excited for in Persona 3 Reload though. Doesn't matter if you played Persona 3 before or not, just let me know, I'm really curious. I talked about Persona 3 a lot on my channel before, so I'm sorry if I repeated myself at points, but it's been months since I made a Persona 3 video, so it's not like I didn't have anything new to say. And the game is also so close to release now that it kind of felt wrong to not talk about it one last time. If you're new here and you're interested in my older Persona 3 videos, I have a playlist up on my channel, and it's also a lot more than just my Persona 3 videos, because it also includes some podcast episodes that I did with a friend on his channel, Nishquick. Be sure to check those out. He's someone that hasn't played Persona 3 before, so we do have some interesting conversations about both POVs, so yeah, check that out. But if you're someone who has been on my channel for a longer time, and you were here with me on this journey leading up to the remake, from rumor speculations to reveal trailer breakdowns and just information breakdowns, thank you so much. I'm not expecting anyone from that time to still be here, but if you are, let me know. Just thank you so much. We almost made it. The game is almost here. And even if I'll definitely talk about Persona again in the future, it kind of feels like the end of an era to not talk about pre-release Persona 3 remake stuff anymore. But yeah, I'm starting to ramble. Thank you to everyone who's watching this video right now. Be sure to subscribe and leave a like. I really appreciate all of the support. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon.